Hello, cruel world. Charles Bronson's ex-wife and his first love has stated publicly that she wants to rekindle their romance. In fact, she visited him in prison for the first time in nearly 50 years. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why some women are attracted to men who are notorious, who are violent, who are criminals, even serial killers in prison. My name is Dr. Sohom. I'm a consultant forensic psychiatrist. I assess mentally disordered offenders for a living so that you don't have to. Okay, so Irene Dunrow, who's 71 years old and is a mother of three, married Charles Bronson, Britain's most notorious inmate, way back in 1971. Then they split up in 1976, but remained in contact with Irene, initially writing him letters, then going on to phone him, and now, more recently, going to actually visit him in person in the high security prison that he's in, HMP Woodhill. So when Irene first married Charles Bronson, he was living under his birth name, his real name, Michael Peterson. I'm, of course, calling him Charles Bronson, but he actually himself identifies as Charles Salvador, so he changed his name again in tribute to the Spanish surrealist artist Salvador Dali. And there's actually quite a lot of similarities. Obviously, now they've got the same name. They both rock a similar mustache. They're both kind of artists. So Charles Bronson is quite famous for his art, not as famous as Salvador Dali, obviously, who did all those, melted clocks and stuff like that. I suppose there are differences as well. Charles Bronson has got a long history of taking people hostage and beating them up and tickling their feathers with feet with feathers. Salvador Dali, as far as I'm aware, never did that. Anyway, Irene has also talked about the fact that Charles Bronson has proposed buying her a ring. So let's move on to Hybristophilia. So Hybristophilia is the psychiatric term for women who fall in love with dangerous men. So why does this happen? What's the attraction? I think it can't be denied that some women literally do it for clout or do it for fame. That might sound a bit judgmental, but I also think it's true for some women because they go on to try and get book deals, etc., etc. I think what's a bit more common, but is also a little bit uncomfortable, is that some of these women, I'm not talking about Irene specifically because I don't know her background, but some of these women have a history of trauma. So either physical or sexual trauma or even emotional, manipulative trauma by a parent or by a partner. And they basically subconsciously or consciously allow this cycle to repeat. So they gravitate towards what's familiar rather than gravitating towards what's safe. And ironically, some of these women, and I say women because it's far more common for a woman to be attracted to a man who's dangerous than the other way around. Ironically, they feel even safer in their relationship, even though their relationship is with violent people or with killers, because the perpetrators, their new lovers, are behind bars. So these women who were once victims are now in control. Now they get to dominate the relationship. And maybe for the first time ever, have they ever had that kind of power dynamic because they've had previously abusive relationships. So basically what I'm saying is the woman is on the outside, he's on the inside. She calls the shots, she makes the decisions, she decides when they're spending time together, she decides when they're visiting, she decides what items he gets to have. She also knows where he is at all times. So, he's not out there cheating on her, for example. So what I'm talking about in terms of psychological terminology is the idealized relationship. So she sees this as a perfect relationship. She doesn't have to endure the day-to-day mundane parts of a relationship. There's no housework, there's no laundry to do, but she gets the excitement of being with a man who is notorious.